What if the world you knew was suddenly disappearing right before your eyes? No, we're not talking about an apocalypse. We're talking about countries ditching the US for BRICS. Sounds crazy, right? But guess what? This is happening in 2025, and it's shaking up the global order. A whirlwind of changes is sweeping across the globe, reshaping alliances and challenging long-standing power structures. While numerous events demand our attention, one particular development stands out for its profound implications: the growing exodus of nations from the sphere of U.S. influence towards the burgeoning BRICS bloc. This isn't just a minor adjustment, it's a seismic shift with the potential to redefine the 21st century. Today, we delve into this phenomenon, exploring the motivations behind this trend and examining 10 key countries poised to pivot towards BRICS, potentially leaving the U.S. behind. We'll analyze the intricate web of economic pressures, political dissatisfactions, and strategic calculations driving these decisions. The implications are vast, touching upon everything from global trade and financial systems to international security and diplomatic relations. Understanding this shift is crucial for navigating the complexities of our rapidly evolving world. Stay with us as we unpack this significant global transformation. And remember, we'll be drawing crucial conclusions at the end of this analysis. Before we dive deeper into the specifics, if you find this analysis insightful and want to stay updated on the most critical shifts in global politics and economics, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the like button. Your support is incredibly important for helping us continue to bring you this kind of content. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see our global audience reach. You might think countries would never turn their back on the US, but as tensions rise and global power shifts, more nations are joining forces with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Why? And what does this mean for America? The allure of the United States, once seemingly unshakable, is facing unprecedented challenges. Rising geopolitical tensions, exemplified by conflicts and trade disputes, have created an atmosphere of uncertainty. Simultaneously, the global balance of power is undeniably shifting. Emerging economies, particularly within the BRICS group, are asserting greater influence on the world stage, offering alternative models for economic development and international cooperation. This changing landscape compels nations to reassess their traditional alliances. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, represent a significant concentration of economic power, population, and resources. Their collective initiatives, like the New Development Bank, offer alternatives to Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank, providing developing nations with financing options potentially free from the political conditionalities often associated with Western aid. Furthermore, frustrations with U.S. foreign policy decisions, perceived unilateralism, and the impact of U.S. sanctions on third-party countries have pushed some nations to seek greater autonomy and explore partnerships beyond the traditional Western sphere. The promise of new trade routes, infrastructure investments through initiatives like China's Belt and Road, and access to rapidly growing markets within the BRICS bloc presents compelling economic incentives. For many countries, aligning with BRICS is not merely an economic calculation, but a strategic move towards a multipolar world order where influence is more broadly distributed. This complex interplay of geopolitical tensions, economic opportunities, and a desire for greater strategic independence is fueling the movement towards BRICS, a trend set to accelerate significantly by 2025. Make sure you watch this video until the very end, as we will be summarizing the key takeaways and offering our final conclusions on this major geopolitical shift. Number 10. Saudi Arabia. You might think that Saudi Arabia would forever be a close ally of the U.S., especially with their decades-long relationship built on oil and security. But guess what? Saudi Arabia is quietly shifting its focus, and it's all about aligning with China and Russia under the growing influence of BRICS. For nearly 80 years, the bedrock of the U.S.-Saudi relationship was the implicit understanding. Saudi oil flows freely, primarily priced in U.S. dollars, bolstering the dollar's global dominance, and in return, the U.S. provides security guarantees for the kingdom. This arrangement, solidified in the 1970s, created the petrodollar system. However, the geopolitical sands are shifting. The expiration of the petrodollar agreement in June 2024, while perhaps symbolic for now, signals a potential decoupling. Saudi Arabia's ambitious vision, 2030 plan, aims to diversify its economy away from oil dependency, reducing its reliance on the old security for oil paradigm. Simultaneously, China has emerged as Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner and a major investor, particularly through the Belt and Road Initiative. Energy deals are increasingly being discussed in currencies other than the US dollar, including the Chinese yuan. Russia, despite international sanctions, remains a key partner within the OPEC+ framework, coordinating oil production levels. This strategic realignment is driven by Riyadh's perception of waning U.S. commitment to Middle East security, coupled with the immense economic opportunities offered by the East. Why? The rise of China as a global economic powerhouse has made Saudi Arabia rethink its dependence on U.S. support. With energy deals, economic cooperation, and new trade routes on the horizon, they're exploring ways to diversify their alliances. You'd be shocked to find out that this major oil producer is now distancing itself from Washington's grip. How will this affect the global energy market? The potential move away from exclusive dollar pricing for oil could gradually erode the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency. Furthermore, closer Saudi BRICS ties could lead to greater coordination in energy policies outside of traditional Western influence, potentially impacting global supply and prices. Stick around as we dive deeper into how this dramatic change is reshaping the Middle East. Number 9. Iran. You won't believe this, but Iran has been ditching the US for years, and 2025 could be the year they officially join BRICS. After being hit with a barrage of US sanctions, Iran has been searching for ways to avoid the stranglehold Washington has over its economy. And what better way to do that than with BRICS? Iran's relationship with the United States has been antagonistic for decades, particularly following the 1979 revolution. Successive rounds of increasingly stringent U.S. sanctions, targeting its oil exports, financial sector, and access to international markets, have severely hampered its economic development. These sanctions, often extraterritorial in nature, have also deterred other countries and companies from engaging economically with Tehran, effectively isolating it from significant parts of the global financial system. Faced with this relentless economic pressure, Iran has actively sought alternative partnerships and mechanisms to bypass U.S. dominance. The BRICS bloc presents an ideal avenue for this strategy. Joining BRICS offers Iran access to a large alternative economic ecosystem less susceptible to U.S. influence. It provides opportunities for trade in local currencies, reducing reliance on the dollar, and access to investment and financing through institutions like the New Development Bank, potentially circumventing Western financial restrictions. Iran's formal accession to BRICS in January 2024 was the culmination of this years-long effort. The real shocker? Iran has already signed economic agreements with Russia and China, and they're pushing for stronger ties with Brazil and India. Long before its formal entry, Iran had been cultivating deep economic and strategic relationships with key BRICS members. Comprehensive 25-year cooperation agreements were signed with China, covering vast investments in infrastructure, energy, and technology. Similarly, Iran has enhanced its military and economic cooperation with Russia, particularly evident since the start of the Ukraine conflict, involving arms deals and efforts to link their financial messaging systems as an alternative to SWIFT. Efforts to boost trade with India, particularly in energy, and with Brazil in various sectors, have also been underway. But guess what? This move isn't just about economics. It's about reasserting independence and building a stronger defense alliance outside of U.S. influence. Beyond the economic imperative, Iran views BRICS membership as a crucial step in bolstering its geopolitical standing and national security. Aligning with major powers like China and Russia provides a counterweight to U.S. pressure and perceived threats in the region. It strengthens Iran's position in international forums and allows for closer military and intelligence cooperation with countries wary of U.S. hegemony. This strategic dimension is as important, if not more so, than the economic benefits, representing Tehran's determination to carve out an independent path in a shifting global order. You might be thinking, Iran, really? But their desire to join BRICS signals a massive geopolitical shift. What does this mean for global security? Iran's full integration into BRICS, particularly its deepening military ties with Russia and China, raises significant concerns for the U.S. and its allies regarding regional stability in the Middle East, nuclear proliferation, and the potential for a more coordinated challenge to Western interests. Let's break it down. Number 8. Turkey. Imagine waking up to hear that one of your oldest allies is no longer on your side. Turkey, a member of NATO and a longtime partner of the U.S., is making a shocking pivot towards BRICS. Turkey's position is particularly complex and potentially disruptive due to its long-standing membership in the NATO alliance, a cornerstone of Western security architecture since the Cold War. For decades, Turkey served as a vital strategic bulwark on NATO's southeastern flank. However, relations between Ankara and its Western partners, especially the U.S., have become increasingly strained over the past decade. Disagreements have spanned a range of issues, including U.S. support for Kurdish groups in Syria, viewed by Turkey as terrorists, Turkey's purchase of the Russian S-400 missile defense system, leading to its expulsion from the F-35 fighter jet program, differing approaches to regional conflicts, and concerns in the West over democratic backsliding under President Erdogan. This accumulation of friction has led Ankara to actively explore alternative geopolitical alignments. But guess what? This move isn't just about political disagreements. It's about Turkey's deepening relationship with Russia and China, especially after years of frustration with U.S. policies. Frustrated by what it perceives as a lack of support and understanding from its traditional allies, Turkey has deliberately cultivated closer ties with Russia and China. Despite being on opposing sides in conflicts like Syria and Libya, Ankara and Moscow have maintained a complex but pragmatic relationship, particularly in energy and trade. Turkey's refusal to join Western sanctions against Russia after the invasion of Ukraine highlighted this strategic balancing act. Simultaneously, Turkey has embraced China's Belt and Road Initiative, seeking infrastructure investment, and significantly increased its trade volume with Beijing. President Erdogan has openly expressed interest in joining BRICS, viewing it as a platform to enhance Turkey's strategic autonomy and diversify its economic and political partnerships away from perceived over-reliance on the West. You won't believe it, but Turkey has already been making strategic shifts for years. While the U.S. has been critical of Turkey's military dealings with Russia, especially over S-400 missile defense systems, Turkey is forging stronger economic ties with China and Russia. The S-400 purchase was a major point of contention, seen by Washington as incompatible with NATO systems and a security risk. Despite U.S. sanctions and criticism, Turkey proceeded, signaling its determination to pursue an independent defense policy. While the U.S. remains a significant trading partner and investor, the growth trajectory of Turkey's economic engagement with Russia and China is notable. Ankara sees BRICS, and particularly its ties with Moscow and Beijing, not just as an economic opportunity, but as a way to increase its leverage in negotiations with the West and assert itself as a more independent regional power. And guess what? It's not stopping there. Turkey's focus on energy independence, infrastructure projects, and trade with BRICS countries is making waves. Turkey is heavily dependent on energy imports, making partnerships with energy-rich Russia and potentially other BRICS nations attractive. Ankara is also positioning itself as a key transit hub, investing heavily in infrastructure projects, many with Chinese financial backing, aiming to connect Asia and Europe. Increased trade with the rapidly growing economies within BRICS offers a vital alternative to potentially stagnating Western markets. This multi-pronged approach, securing energy, building infrastructure, and expanding trade eastward, is central to Turkey's strategy for the coming years. But here's the real kicker. Turkey is not just shifting its alliances, it's actively seeking a more influential role in the global economy. They're eyeing the BRICS group to diversify their markets, particularly through China's Belt and Road Initiative. This move is about more than just dissatisfaction. It's a calculated strategy for Ankara to enhance its global standing. By engaging more deeply with BRICS, Turkey aims to become a rule shaper, rather than just a rule taker in the evolving international economic order. Leveraging its strategic location and growing economic ties with the East, Turkey aspires to play a more prominent role, potentially mediating between East and West while pursuing its own national interests more assertively. This could completely change the balance of power in the region. What does this mean for U.S. influence in Europe and the Middle East? Turkey's drift towards BRICS is deeply concerning for Washington and Brussels. It weakens NATO cohesion, potentially creating security vulnerabilities on its southern flank. It complicates U.S. and European policy in the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean, where Turkey is a major player. A Turkey more closely aligned with Russia and China reduces Western leverage and could significantly alter the geopolitical calculus in critical regions bordering Europe and the Middle East. Stick around to find out how Turkey's move could rock the boat. Number 7. Argentina. Hold up. Did you ever think that Argentina could ditch the U.S. for BRICS? Well, guess what? That's exactly what's happening in 2025. The notion of Argentina, a nation historically intertwined with Western economies and financial institutions, pivoting towards BRICS, might seem counterintuitive. Argentina has long relied on bodies like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for financial bailouts, leading to a complex and often fraught relationship characterized by debt restructuring and austerity measures imposed as conditions for loans. Its economic ties, while diverse, have traditionally leaned towards the U.S. and Europe. However, chronic economic instability, marked by recurring debt crises, hyperinflation, and political volatility, has prompted successive Argentinian governments to explore alternatives to Western dependency. The appeal of BRICS, particularly the promise of investment and financing without the stringent conditionalities often attached by the IMF, has grown considerably. It's hard to imagine Argentina, with its deep economic ties to the West, suddenly joining forces with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But it's happening, and it could reshape the South American continent. The perceived failures of Western-backed economic policies to deliver sustained stability and growth have fueled a search for new partners. BRICS nations, especially China, offer significant trade opportunities and, crucially, large-scale infrastructure investment through initiatives like the Belt and Road, which Argentina formally joined. Neighboring Brazil, a founding BRICS member, is also a major trading partner, creating a natural pull towards the bloc. While political winds in Argentina can shift rapidly, the underlying economic logic for closer ties with BRICS remains compelling for many factions, offering a potential escape route from cycles of Western debt and IMF oversight. The potential integration of Argentina into BRICS could significantly alter the geopolitical landscape of South America, challenging traditional U.S. influence in the region. You won't believe this, but Argentina's economy has been struggling for years, under the weight of inflation, debt, and lack of stability. As a result, they've been looking for new partners to help boost their financial future. Enter BRICS. Argentina's economic woes are legendary. Decades of mismanagement, political upheaval, and external shocks have resulted in crippling debt burdens and some of the world's highest inflation rates. This persistent instability has made it difficult to attract sustainable foreign investment from traditional Western sources and has repeatedly forced the country back to the IMF. The social and political costs of IMF-mandated austerity programs have often been high, leading to widespread public discontent. BRICS represents a potential alternative source of capital and trade, perceived by some as less intrusive politically. With China already deeply invested in Argentina's infrastructure and trade, Argentina is now leaning heavily into BRICS for economic cooperation, especially when it comes to energy, trade, and currency swaps. China's role in Argentina has expanded significantly, encompassing investments in railways, energy projects, including nuclear power and renewable energy, agriculture, and mining. Discussions around conducting trade in local currencies, particularly using the Chinese yuan instead of the US dollar, have gained traction as a way to conserve dwindling foreign reserves and reduce reliance on the dollarized global system. Energy cooperation with fellow BRICS members, given Argentina's own significant shale gas reserves, Vaca Muerta, is another area of potential growth. Joining BRICS is seen as a pathway to unlock further economic benefits and diversify away from precarious Western financial ties. But guess what? Argentina's move towards BRICS is about more than just survival. It's about asserting sovereignty. They want to break free from the grip of the US dollar and the IMF. And in joining BRICS, they're looking to tap into new markets and strengthen their role in the global economic system. For many in Argentina, the relationship with the IMF and the dominance of the US dollar symbolize a loss of economic sovereignty. Aligning with BRICS is viewed as a way to regain control over national economic policy and reduce external vulnerabilities. It's an assertion of a desire to participate in a more multipolar world, where alternative development paths and financial architectures exist. By joining a bloc that explicitly challenges the existing global financial order, Argentina aims to gain a louder voice in international economic discussions and access resources on terms potentially more favorable to its national interests. This shift could change the dynamics of South American geopolitics forever. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. Number 6. Indonesia. Have you ever thought Indonesia would choose BRICS over its long-standing ties with the West? Well, guess what? It's happening, and the shift is monumental. Indonesia, the world's fourth most populous nation and Southeast Asia's largest economy, has traditionally maintained a policy of strategic ambiguity, carefully balancing its relationships between major global powers. It has deep historical and economic ties with the West, particularly the United States and European nations, which have been significant sources of investment, aid, and security cooperation. However, Indonesia has also fiercely guarded its foreign policy independence, rooted in the principles of the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. In recent years, facing the growing geopolitical rivalry between the US and China, and seeking to maximize its own economic and strategic advantages, Jakarta has shown increasing interest in diversifying its partnerships. The BRICS bloc, offering a platform for cooperation among major non-Western powers, aligns with Indonesia's desire to play a more prominent role on the global stage without being drawn exclusively into one camp. Indonesia, with its bustling economy and strategic location in Southeast Asia, is ready to leave behind its historical reliance on the US and embrace the growing influence of BRICS. Its strategic location astride crucial maritime trade routes gives Indonesia significant geopolitical weight. Its large and growing economy makes it an attractive partner for trade and investment. While maintaining cordial relations with the US, Indonesia has seen a massive surge in economic engagement with China, now its largest trading partner and a major source of infrastructure investment, particularly in resource processing, like nickel, and transportation projects. Jakarta views BRICS as an opportunity to further amplify its economic growth, gain access to new markets and technologies, and enhance its diplomatic leverage by engaging with a powerful group of emerging economies that share some of its perspectives on global governance reform. You won't believe it, but Indonesia, the largest economy in Southeast Asia, has been working behind the scenes to align itself with China and Russia, two powerful BRICS members. This isn't a sudden change, but a gradual recalibration. As Indonesia's economic ties with the West have cooled, its partnerships with China in infrastructure and trade have grown significantly. While perhaps not cooling in absolute terms, the relative importance of partnerships with BRICS nations, especially China, has undeniably increased. China's Belt and Road Initiative has funded significant projects in Indonesia. Furthermore, strategic dialogues and military-to-military contacts with both China and Russia have occurred, albeit cautiously, reflecting Jakarta's balancing act. Indonesia sees alignment with BRICS not necessarily as an exclusive choice against the West, but as a pragmatic strategy to maximize its options and benefits in an increasingly multipolar world. The potential for increased trade, access to alternative financing via the new development bank, and enhanced technological cooperation are key drivers. But that's not all. The country's Belt and Road Initiative projects and China's growing influence in Indonesia's resource-rich areas are making waves in the region. China's deep involvement in Indonesia's natural resource sector, particularly nickel mining and processing crucial for electric vehicle batteries, underscores the tightening economic links. Major infrastructure projects, like the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway, built with Chinese technology and financing, are tangible symbols of this growing partnership. This increasing economic interdependence inevitably has geopolitical implications, raising questions in Washington and other Western capitals about Indonesia's long-term strategic trajectory and its potential drift away from traditional Western alignment. And guess what? Indonesia is not just following China's lead. It's pushing to strengthen its role within BRICS. They are looking for new opportunities in energy, defense, and technology, positioning themselves as a key player in this new economic alliance. Indonesia seeks to be more than just a passive participant. It aims to leverage its size, economic potential, and diplomatic tradition to become an influential voice within an expanded BRICS. Jakarta is interested in collaborating on energy transitions, given its own vast renewable potential, enhancing defense capabilities through diversified procurement and potential joint exercises, and accessing advanced technologies beyond Western sources. By actively engaging with BRICS, Indonesia aims to shape the bloc's agenda in ways that serve its national interests and bolster its status as a leading power in Southeast Asia and the broader Indo-Pacific region. This shift could completely alter the balance of power in Southeast Asia. You might be asking, what does this mean for the U.S. in the region? Well, this move is a clear signal of Indonesia's desire for greater sovereignty in the face of global economic pressures. Indonesia's potential full membership in BRICS would represent a significant geopolitical development. It would challenge U.S. efforts to build a cohesive Indo-Pacific strategy centered on countering China's influence. A BRICS-aligned Indonesia could complicate U.S. naval access and operations in the region and provide China with a greater strategic foothold. Economically, it could lead to a further diversification of supply chains away from traditional patterns. For the U.S., losing influence with a pivotal nation like Indonesia would be a major setback in the strategic competition shaping the 21st century. Stick around as we explore how this seismic shift will impact global politics. Number 5. Egypt. Hold up. Did you ever think Egypt, with its long history of ties to the U.S. and the West, could ditch the U.S. for BRICS? Well, you won't believe this, but it's happening in 2025. Egypt, a nation of immense historical significance and strategic importance due to its control over the Suez Canal, has long been a major recipient of U.S. military and economic aid, particularly since the Camp David Accords in 1978. This relationship established Egypt as a key U.S. partner in the Middle East. However, in recent years, Cairo has sought to diversify its foreign relations, driven by economic imperatives and a desire for greater strategic flexibility amidst shifting regional dynamics. While maintaining its relationship with Washington, Egypt has actively courted investment and strengthened ties with other global players, including Russia and China. The appeal of BRICS membership aligns with this diversification strategy, offering potential economic benefits and a platform to engage with influential non-Western powers. Egypt, strategically located at the crossroads of Africa and the Middle East, has been turning away from traditional Western alliances and is now gravitating toward BRICS. Its strategic location makes Egypt a vital link in global trade and a significant player in both African and Middle Eastern affairs. Economic challenges, including high debt, inflation, and unemployment, have pushed the Egyptian government under President Sisi to seek substantial foreign investment and new economic partnerships. BRICS countries, especially China and Russia, as well as Gulf states like the UAE, which joined BRICS alongside Egypt, have become increasingly important sources of investment, trade, and financial support. Joining BRICS is seen by Cairo as a way to access alternative funding sources, boost trade, and enhance its geopolitical standing. But why? Egypt's economy has been under extreme pressure in recent years, with soaring debt, inflation, and an energy crisis. To weather these challenges, Egypt has started looking to China, Russia, and other BRICS nations for support. The Egyptian economy has faced severe headwinds, exacerbated by the global impact of the Ukraine war on food and energy prices, and pre-existing structural weaknesses. The burden of servicing its large external debt has become immense. While still engaging with the IMF, Egypt has actively pursued financing and investment from BRICS members. China is involved in major infrastructure projects, including the development around the Suez Canal and the construction of a new administrative capital. Russia has been contracted to build Egypt's first nuclear power plant at El Dabaa. The UAE has pledged significant investments. These partnerships offer lifelines and development opportunities perceived as having fewer political strings attached compared to Western aid. These countries are not only offering financial aid, but also strategic military cooperation, all of which have become increasingly attractive to Egypt's leadership. Beyond economics, strategic considerations play a role. While U.S. military aid continues, Egypt has diversified its arms suppliers, purchasing weapon systems from Russia and other European countries like France. Closer ties with BRICS nations offer potential avenues for enhanced security cooperation and intelligence sharing outside the traditional U.S.-centric framework. For the Sisi government, demonstrating strategic autonomy and balancing relationships between global powers is a key foreign policy objective, and BRICS provides a valuable platform for this. And guess what? Egypt is also looking to diversify its partnerships beyond the West, focusing on boosting trade with BRICS nations. They've been pursuing infrastructure development projects with China, along with energy deals with Russia, making it clear that BRICS offers a more secure and stable path forward. The drive for diversification is central. Egypt aims to reduce its vulnerability to potential shifts in Western policy or aid levels. Increasing trade with the large and growing markets of BRICS nations is a priority. Infrastructure development, vital for economic growth and job creation, relies heavily on foreign investment, and China has proven a willing partner. Energy deals, particularly the nuclear power project with Rosatom, Russia, and potential collaborations in renewable energy, are crucial for meeting Egypt's growing energy demands. For Cairo, BRICS represents a pragmatic path towards greater economic resilience and stability. But what does this mean for U.S. influence in the region? You'll be shocked to find out how this geopolitical shift will play out, and what it means for the future of the Middle East and Africa. Egypt's potential full embrace of BRICS carries significant implications. It could diminish U.S. influence in a strategically vital country, impacting regional security dynamics, counterterrorism efforts, and the Arab-Israeli peace process. A closer Egypt-Russia relationship, particularly in the military sphere, is a concern for Washington. Economically, it signifies the growing appeal of non-Western development models and financial institutions. The move underscores the shifting geopolitical landscape, where middle powers like Egypt are increasingly maneuvering between global giants to maximize their own interests, potentially eroding the long-standing U.S.-led order in the region. Stay tuned as we explore Egypt's new direction. Number 4. Algeria. Imagine a country that has long been a strategic ally of the West, suddenly pivoting away from decades of partnerships. That's exactly what's happening with Algeria in 2025. Algeria, a major North African nation rich in natural gas reserves, has historically maintained a complex relationship with the West. While European countries, particularly France, its former colonial power, and Italy, have been major consumers of Algerian gas and key trading partners, political relations have often been cautious. Algeria pursued a path of non-alignment during the Cold War and has generally sought to maintain its strategic autonomy. In recent years, however, Algeria has perceptibly strengthened its ties with Russia and China, driven by a combination of factors including a desire to modernize its military, attract infrastructure investment, and assert its influence in a volatile regional environment. The prospect of BRICS membership aligns with this trend, offering a platform to deepen these non-Western partnerships. You won't believe it, but Algeria, one of the most resource-rich nations in Africa, is shifting its focus to BRICS, leaving the US and Europe behind in a surprising turn of events. Algeria possesses vast reserves of oil and natural gas, making it a significant energy supplier, especially to southern Europe. Traditionally, its energy exports were primarily directed towards European markets. However, Algeria has been actively seeking to diversify its customer base and partnerships. Its military has long relied heavily on Russian hardware, and this relationship has deepened, with Algeria becoming one of the largest purchasers of Russian arms in Africa. Simultaneously, China has emerged as a major economic partner, heavily involved in infrastructure projects across the country, including the construction of the East-West Highway and the Great Mosque of Algiers, and increasing its trade volume. This eastward tilt reflects a strategic calculation to reduce dependence on traditional Western partners and build alliances with rising global powers. You'd be shocked to know that Algeria, once heavily dependent on Western trade and military partnerships, is now seeking to increase its ties with China and Russia. The historical reliance on the West, particularly France, has been tempered by a post-colonial desire for sovereignty and diversification. While trade with Europe remains significant, especially in the energy sector, the growth in economic and military ties has been notably oriented towards China and Russia. Algeria sees these partnerships as crucial for national development and security. China offers much-needed investment and construction expertise without the political lecturing perceived from some Western nations. Russia provides advanced military technology, helping Algeria maintain its position as a major regional military power. Joining BRICS would formalize and potentially accelerate this ongoing shift. But guess what? Algeria's government has been quietly deepening its connections with the BRICS nations, eyeing opportunities in infrastructure projects, energy trade, and defense cooperation. Over the years, China has become a major player in Algeria's energy sector, helping develop oil and gas resources, while Russia has been offering arms and military support. This isn't just about economics and defense. Algeria has long struggled with political instability and internal divisions, and this shift towards BRICS offers a way out of the growing pressure from the West. Algeria's political system has faced internal challenges and calls for reform. Aligning with BRICS countries, which generally adhere to a principle of non-interference in internal affairs, provides the Algerian leadership with greater diplomatic insulation from Western pressure concerning democracy and human rights. By joining BRICS, Algeria can gain a stronger foothold in the global political arena. Russia's influence in the Mediterranean, combined with China's vast economic resources, makes BRICS an appealing alternative to the traditional Western influence that has shaped Algeria's foreign policy for decades. The strategic rationale is compelling. BRICS membership offers Algeria a seat at the table with major global powers, enhancing its international stature. It diversifies its diplomatic options beyond the often demanding relationships with European nations and the US. The combination of Russia's regional influence, particularly in neighboring Libya and the Sahel, and China's economic might, provides a powerful counterweight to Western leverage. And guess what? This shift will also impact the global oil market. Algeria, as one of the top oil producers in Africa, will now be aligning itself with nations like Russia and Brazil, shifting the balance of power in energy production. For decades, the US has been a key player in Algeria's oil sector, but with the new BRICS alliance, this relationship could diminish over time. While the US role in Algeria's oil sector hasn't been as dominant as in some other countries, the broader shift is significant. Algeria's closer alignment within BRICS, particularly with major energy players like Russia and Brazil, could lead to greater coordination on energy policy outside of traditional Western-influenced forums like the IEA. This could impact global pricing, supply dynamics, and investment flows in the energy sector, potentially challenging Western dominance in the global energy conversation. Algeria's membership in BRICS would also pave the way for more trade deals with countries outside the West, offering access to new markets, better investment opportunities, and economic stability. This move represents a diversification strategy, seeking resilience by reducing reliance on any single bloc. BRICS nations offer vast and growing markets for Algerian exports, potentially beyond energy. Access to the new development bank could provide alternative financing for crucial development projects. For Algeria, BRICS membership is a multifaceted strategy aimed at enhancing economic stability, increasing diplomatic maneuverability, and asserting greater national sovereignty. As the world continues to shift, Algeria's entry into the BRICS alliance will have profound effects on geopolitics, and you won't want to miss how it all unfolds. Will Algeria's bold move change the future of African politics? Stay tuned. because things are only getting started. Number 3. Nigeria. Now let's turn our attention to Nigeria, Africa's largest economy. You won't believe what's happening in the political and economic landscape of this powerhouse in 2025. Nigeria, often referred to as the giant of Africa due to its large population and significant oil reserves, has traditionally maintained complex but generally strong ties with the West, particularly the US and the UK. These relationships have been crucial for trade, investment, security cooperation, especially in counterterrorism efforts in the Sahel region, and development aid. However, Nigeria, like many other African nations, has also felt the increasing pull of alternative partnerships, driven by a need for massive infrastructure development, economic diversification beyond oil, and sometimes frustration with the conditions attached to Western assistance or perceived inconsistencies in Western policy. The rise of China as a major economic force in Africa, offering large loans and rapid infrastructure development, alongside the broader appeal of the BRICS bloc representing the Global South, has presented Nigeria with new strategic options. Nigeria, once deeply aligned with the US and the West, is now eyeing BRICS, a shift that could completely alter the balance of power in West Africa and beyond. While Nigeria continues to engage with Western partners, there's a growing inclination to explore the possibilities offered by BRICS. Membership could provide Nigeria with enhanced diplomatic leverage, access to alternative sources of finance through the new development bank, potentially crucial for funding its vast infrastructure needs, and expanded trade opportunities with some of the world's fastest-growing economies. Given Nigeria's economic weight and regional influence, its potential accession to BRICS would be a highly significant event, potentially influencing other West African nations and signaling a major shift in the continent's geopolitical orientation away from traditional Western dominance. But guess what? Nigeria has been quietly moving away from its reliance on the West, turning instead to China, Russia, and other BRICS nations. Over the past few years, the country has been growing closer to China, signing major infrastructure deals under China's Belt and Road Initiative. This isn't a secret plot, but a visible trend. China has become Nigeria's largest source of imports and a major financier of critical infrastructure projects, including railways, airports, and power plants. While often welcomed for addressing Nigeria's infrastructure deficit, the terms of Chinese loans and the influx of Chinese companies have also sparked debate within Nigeria. Relations with Russia, though less extensive economically, exist in areas like military cooperation. This gradual reorientation reflects a pragmatic search for development partners willing to invest on a large scale, sometimes perceived as being less critical of internal governance issues than Western nations. But that's just the beginning. With Russia providing military support, and China boosting its trade and investments in critical sectors like oil and gas, Nigeria is positioning itself for a larger role in the global economy. Nigeria faces significant security challenges, including the Boko Haram insurgency and unrest in the Niger Delta. While Western military assistance continues, Nigeria has also explored diversifying its security partnerships, including potential arms purchases from Russia. Economically, the oil and gas sector remains critical, but Nigeria is keen to diversify. BRICS membership could facilitate investment in non-oil sectors and boost trade in agricultural products and manufactured goods. By aligning with BRICS, Nigeria aims to leverage the collective economic weight of the bloc to secure more favorable trade terms and attract investment for its ambitious development goals. You'd be shocked to learn that Nigeria's decision to move closer to BRICS isn't just about economics, it's also about strategic positioning. In recent years, Nigeria's government has faced significant pressure from the West over issues like human rights abuses and corruption. This pressure has led to growing dissatisfaction with Western influence. By joining BRICS, Nigeria is not only seeking greater economic opportunities, but also distancing itself from the West's political scrutiny. Concerns raised by Western governments and NGOs regarding human rights and corruption have sometimes strained relations. BRICS nations typically emphasize state sovereignty and non-interference, which can be appealing to governments facing external criticism. Joining BRICS allows Nigeria to align itself with a group of influential nations that offer an alternative diplomatic and economic framework. potentially reducing its perceived vulnerability to Western political pressure and conditionality. And guess what? Nigeria's potential membership in BRICS could reshape the African continent's relationship with global powers. As Africa's largest oil exporter, Nigeria's resources are increasingly coveted by BRICS nations. China is already a major player in Nigeria's oil sector, and with Russia eyeing greater access to Africa's natural resources, BRICS becomes an appealing platform for Nigeria to secure more favorable trade terms. This new alignment could also bring Nigeria closer to India, another emerging BRICS member, creating opportunities for collaboration in technology, agriculture, and energy sectors. The impact of Nigeria's move to BRICS will be felt far beyond its borders, potentially signaling a shift in African geopolitics that could challenge the traditional dominance of Western powers on the continent. Nigeria's accession would significantly bolster BRICS's presence and influence in Africa. It could encourage other African nations to follow suit, accelerating the trend towards multipolarity on the continent. This could lead to increased competition for influence between the West and the BRICS bloc across Africa, impacting everything from trade agreements and investment flows to security partnerships and diplomatic alignments. The consequences of this shift could be far-reaching, affecting energy markets, military alliances, and the overall geopolitical balance in one of the world's most dynamic continents. Number 2. Bangladesh. Let's talk about Bangladesh, a country you wouldn't expect to be making waves in the global political sphere, but here we are. In 2025, Bangladesh is rapidly shifting its alliances, and you won't believe where it's heading. Bangladesh, strategically located in South Asia between India and Southeast Asia, has long maintained a foreign policy focused on balancing relationships with its giant neighbors, India and China, while also cultivating strong ties with Western nations, which have been crucial partners in its remarkable economic development, particularly through the garment export industry and development aid. Traditionally, the U.S. and European countries have been major markets for its exports and sources of assistance. However, Bangladesh, like many developing nations, is seeking to diversify its economic partnerships and enhance its strategic autonomy. The country's impressive economic growth over the past decade has increased its confidence and its ambition to play a larger role regionally and globally. The BRICS bloc, representing powerful emerging economies and offering alternative development financing, presents an attractive option for Dhaka to achieve these goals. Once considered a traditional ally of Western nations, Bangladesh is now aligning itself with BRICS, and the reasons behind this move are nothing short of shocking. While maintaining important ties with the West, Bangladesh has significantly deepened its economic relationship with China in recent years. China is now Bangladesh's largest trading partner and a major investor in critical infrastructure, including the Padma Bridge, power plants, and port facilities, largely under the umbrella of the Belt and Road Initiative. Bangladesh has also maintained stable, albeit complex, relations with Russia, particularly in the energy sector, with Russia constructing the Rupur nuclear power plant. Simultaneously, while relations with the U.S. have faced some strain over political issues like democratic freedoms and labor rights, Dhaka has actively pursued BRICS membership, seeing it as a vital platform to advance its economic interests and gain greater diplomatic standing among non-Western powers. You might be thinking, why would a country like Bangladesh, with its close ties to Western trade and aid, suddenly shift gears? But guess what? Bangladesh's economic growth over the last decade has been nothing short of miraculous. With booming textile exports and a rapidly growing economy, Bangladesh is now looking to expand its influence beyond the West. Bangladesh's economic success story, lifting millions out of poverty, has been heavily reliant on exports to Western markets and preferential trade access. However, the government recognizes the need to diversify its economy and export destinations to ensure long-term resilience. BRICS nations offer huge potential markets for Bangladeshi goods beyond garments. Furthermore, accessing financing from the new development bank could reduce reliance on the conditional loans from the World Bank and IMF, giving Dhaka greater policy space. The desire to be recognized as a significant emerging economy and have a voice in shaping global economic governance also motivates its BRICS aspirations. China has been increasing its investment in Bangladesh, especially in infrastructure projects under its Belt and Road Initiative. And you know what that means? This is Bangladesh's way of securing access to more global markets, and BRICS offers just that. The tangible benefits of Chinese investment are evident across Bangladesh. These projects address critical infrastructure bottlenecks, boosting economic competitiveness. While beneficial, this deepening dependence on Chinese financing also raises strategic questions. BRICS membership is seen as a way to formalize this eastward economic tilt and potentially gain even greater access to investment and trade opportunities, not just from China, but from other BRICS members like India, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa. It's a pragmatic move to leverage the economic dynamism of the BRICS bloc for continued national development. You'd be shocked to learn that Bangladesh's government is looking to increase its strategic partnerships with Russia and China for key infrastructure projects like roads, ports, and energy plants. In fact, Bangladesh's decision to join BRICS will put it on the fast track to gain better trade agreements and infrastructure investments. Beyond the general BRI framework, specific collaborations are key. The Rupur nuclear power plant built by Russia's Rosatom is a cornerstone of Bangladesh's energy strategy. Further cooperation in energy, transportation, and digital infrastructure with BRICS nations is anticipated. Membership facilitates such deals by providing a formal multilateral framework for negotiation and cooperation, potentially leading to more favorable terms and streamlined processes compared to bilateral negotiations alone. But it's not just about money. It's also about positioning itself as a major player in South Asia and taking a stance against the overwhelming influence of Western powers. Bangladesh seeks to elevate its regional and global profile. By joining BRICS, it aligns itself with a bloc representing a significant portion of the world's population and GDP, enhancing its diplomatic clout. It allows Dhaka to pursue a more independent foreign policy, balancing its relationships rather than being solely dependent on Western goodwill or susceptible to Western pressure on internal political matters. This move reflects a broader trend among developing nations seeking a greater voice and more equitable participation in the international system. And here's something you probably didn't know. Bangladesh is already seeing the benefits of this shift. With China's increasing economic influence in the region, Bangladesh is now able to sidestep some of the diplomatic pressures it faced from Western nations regarding human rights and labor laws. By joining BRICS, Bangladesh is signaling its desire to strengthen economic ties with emerging global powers, making it less reliant on the West. This shift in alliances will undoubtedly affect the global political and economic landscape. The growing economic integration with China provides Bangladesh with alternative markets and investment sources, reducing the leverage previously held by Western nations through trade access and aid conditionality. While Dhaka will likely seek to maintain diverse relationships, the gravitational pull of the BRICS economies, coupled with the bloc's emphasis on non-interference, makes alignment increasingly attractive. This move contributes to the gradual reshaping of the global order, challenging the long-standing dominance of Western institutions and norms. Number 1. South Korea. Now let's look at South Korea, a country known for its rapid technological advancement, strong economy, and close ties to the United States. But in 2025, South Korea is making a surprising shift. The country is now setting its sights on BRICS, and you won't believe why. South Korea represents perhaps the most startling potential candidate for a pivot towards BRICS. As a developed economy, a vibrant democracy, and a treaty ally of the United States with a significant U.S. military presence on its soil, South Korea has been firmly anchored in the Western camp for over 70 years. Its economic miracle was built on close integration with Western markets and technology, and its security has fundamentally relied on the U.S. alliance to deter North Korea. However, South Korea's geopolitical environment is complex. It faces the direct threat from North Korea, but also navigates an increasingly intense rivalry between its security guarantor, the U.S., and its largest trading partner, China. This delicate balancing act is becoming harder to maintain, pushing Seoul to explore ways to enhance its strategic flexibility and economic resilience. You'd be shocked to learn that South Korea, a country that has been a staunch ally of the U.S. for decades, is now seeking to strengthen its relationship with BRICS nations, including China and India. While the U.S. alliance remains paramount for South Korea's security, Seoul recognizes the undeniable economic reality of China's importance and the growing weight of other BRICS economies like India. South Korean businesses are deeply integrated into Chinese supply chains and rely heavily on the Chinese market. Growing economic ties with India and other emerging markets are also crucial for future growth. While full BRICS membership might seem unlikely in the near term given the U.S. alliance, South Korea is undoubtedly increasing its engagement with BRICS nations on multiple fronts, economically, diplomatically, and potentially even exploring specific areas of cooperation within the BRICS framework or with its individual members. This reflects a pragmatic adjustment to shifting global power dynamics. And the reasons behind this shift? Let's just say they go beyond simple trade. First off, South Korea has been facing increasing pressure from the U.S. over issues like trade imbalances and its reliance on Chinese manufacturing. With the U.S. becoming more protectionist in recent years, South Korea is looking for a new way to secure its place on the global stage. The America First policies and subsequent focus on friendshoring and decoupling from China under recent U.S. administrations have created challenges for export-oriented economies like South Korea. U.S. pressure to curb semiconductor exports to China, for instance, puts South Korean tech giants in a difficult position, caught between their main security ally and their largest market. Seeking closer ties with BRICS could be interpreted as a hedging strategy, a way to diversify economic partnerships and reduce vulnerability to U.S. trade policy shifts or demands related to the U.S.-China tech war. Joining BRICS gives South Korea more leverage, allowing it to diversify its trade partners and hedge against growing tensions with the U.S. While full membership seems improbable, even observer status or enhanced dialogue partnership with BRICS could provide Seoul with greater diplomatic maneuverability. It would allow South Korea to signal that it has options beyond the U.S. alliance and could strengthen its negotiating position with Washington on trade and security matters. It also facilitates deeper engagement with the huge markets of China and India, which are critical for South Korea's key industries, including technology and automobiles. With China's growing demand for high-tech products and India's burgeoning middle class, South Korea sees an opportunity to secure its future in these expanding markets. South Korea's economic future is inextricably linked to Asia. Accessing the vast consumer markets and investment opportunities in China, India, and other BRICS nations is essential. Collaboration in high-tech sectors, where South Korea is a leader but faces growing competition, could also be explored within the BRICS framework. While navigating the geopolitical complexities, particularly the sensitivities of its U.S. alliance, Seoul recognizes the economic imperative of engaging deeply with the BRICS bloc. But wait, there's more. You might not realize it, but South Korea is also increasingly looking for an alternative to its reliance on U.S. military support. By joining BRICS, South Korea could gain more autonomy in terms of defense policy and become more independent in its geopolitical decision-making. While the U.S. security guarantee remains vital against North Korea, there are elements within South Korea that desire greater defense autonomy and worry about the long-term reliability or potential costs of the U.S. commitment. Engaging with BRICS, which includes military powers like Russia and China, could, in theory, offer avenues for diversifying defense relationships, although this would be extremely sensitive given the U.S. alliance. More realistically, closer ties with BRICS could bolster South Korea's diplomatic weight, allowing it to pursue its interests, such as engagement with North Korea or managing relations with China, with potentially greater independence from Washington's immediate directives. The growing influence of Russia and China in the Asia-Pacific region could provide South Korea with new military alliances and strategic benefits. This potential shift towards BRICS is shaking up the traditional power structures in East Asia. South Korea's growing ties to China and Russia could change the balance of power in the region, and it's something you won't want to miss. A significant South Korean tilt towards BRICS, however unlikely in the extreme, would fundamentally alter the strategic landscape of Northeast Asia. It would weaken the U.S. alliance system in the region and could embolden North Korea and China. Even increased economic and diplomatic engagement short of formal alignment could complicate U.S. strategy. This evolving dynamic underscores the complex choices facing U.S. allies in an era of great power competition, where economic interests and security imperatives can sometimes pull in different directions. As the world continues to shift and evolve, Countries like Bangladesh, South Korea, and others are rethinking their long-standing alliances and joining the BRICS bloc. The implications of these decisions will undoubtedly reshape global politics and economics in the years to come. BRICS is no longer just a group of emerging economies. It's a force to be reckoned with. These 10 nations represent just the tip of the iceberg. The magnetic pull of BRICS, fueled by economic promise, disillusionment with the existing Western-led order, and the desire for a multipolar world, is undeniable. This movement signifies a potential reordering of global power not seen since the end of the Cold War. The United States and its Western allies face a critical juncture, needing to adapt to a world where their influence, while still immense, is no longer unchallenged. The rise of BRICS and the potential expansion to include these diverse and influential nations will undoubtedly be one of the defining geopolitical narratives of the coming decade. It promises a future of increased complexity, competition, and perhaps new avenues for international cooperation. But the final shape of this new world order remains to be written. If you found these insights shocking and thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button. We'll keep bringing you the latest and most important updates on global politics and power shifts. Thanks for watching.